Hi, everybody. My name is Nina Boski, and I am so excited about our next guest here on Mental Health Mondays. I'm very honored. This individual helps people each and every day for many years, and I consider him now a friend, but a colleague and a wonderful soul, Mr. Tim Storey. So welcome, Tim.
Good to see you. And I was telling you, in the midst of COVID, how great your hair looks.
Well, now that you can actually go back in a very different way, right, with your hairdressers, it's a very different experience. Just, I don't know if we'll get to the mental health part of it, but this is it too. For those of you that have animals, I don't know if you have animals, but it's been an interesting experience going to the vet as well. So each and everything that we're doing nowadays is taking an intentional look at how it makes you feel,
yes,
etc. And I know you and I have been working on the Marliyn project and talking about the correlation between mental health and addiction. And
yes,
wow, Tim, it's on the rise, and it's such a huge thing that's happening in society. What's your feelings on this whole thing that's happening right now? Because people are stressed.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're finding is how complicated the mind really is. I think many times when people think of the mind, they think of just studying in school, or they think of dreaming and projection and believing for great things. But when we are faced with a lot of complexities at one time, most people do not know how to deal with so many at one time. So if you just look at the time that we're in, we have two major things. We have the pandemic, right, which has literally touched the globe. But we have the second thing that took place is what's taking place with the racism side of life that happened in America. But as you saw, it started going all over the world. And so it went from protests to, in some cities, riots, not every city. But that's a lot for a lot of people to take on at one time. But today we're going to give some people some help and some solutions and answers on how to work through that.
Well, and it actually all blends together, right? Because we went from COVID to coming out of COVID to the protests and all this upheaval, internal and external upheaval that's happening, back into uncertainty again, which then creates, I'm going to go to what I know,
Mm-hmm.
which is depression in one person's case. It may be alcoholism in another person's case. It may be some type of mental health issue. So what do you say to somebody that is, really dealing with this uncertainty on top of potentially having a mental health issue or an addiction?
Yeah. So the challenge of life for all of us is that we're going through two things at one time. We're going through recovery and discovery. So recovery is the healing of things from our past and also from our present. Discovery is hopefully enjoying new things today and new things that will come tomorrow, right? So recovery and discovery. Now, at the same time of the recovery and discovery, we are trying to prosper in different areas of our life. Physically, spiritually, we're trying to prosper in our job, our finances, our family, and this sounds interesting, but our social life. So of all the main components of our lives, every one of them is challenged by COVID-19. Every one of them.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you have is you have a lot of force coming at you at one time. So how then do we deal with it? We have to really learn to put things into compartments and deal with them at one thing at a time. It's like a mother that maybe has 5 children. and one is hungry, the other one needs to go to soccer practice.
That's what's happening. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's all happening at once, and we're feeling this. I know even for myself, and I have a mindset ritual in the mornings. I do something during the day, and for a while there, I'm better now, but I have to tell you, 4:30, 5 o'clock, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exhausting. And I think part of it is that if you're at all an empath or any kind of feeler in the world, even if you're not, it's just it feels like things are going like this unless you can get out from underneath it. And so, the fact that we're going through all this at one time, you said deal with it one step at a time.
One step at a time. So I could walk people through that. So
yeah, that'd be great.
So what happens is, you have the mindset. So I was writing some notes. So to set something means to lock it, to fix it, to solidify. So you have to make sure that your mind is set to the right channel. It's like the old days when we had the television, where we actually had to get up off the couch and turn it ourselves.
And watch all the commercials.
Yeah. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm very careful about what I set my mind on. So I like to listen to really nice music. I like to pray. I like to meditate. Another thing that I do is I'm a walker/runner, which I do probably 4 or 5 times a week, early in the morning. So
I see in your tennis shoes quite a bit, don't I?
Yes. So what happens is that I am now setting my mind and therefore setting the tone of my day. So I have this saying that if you don't do something with life, life will do something with you. So I believe that people are being pushed around by life. So we have to start and set the tone early. What do you think about that?
I think that is such, even if we didn't talk about anything else, just that. Because so many people are either glued to the television, watching the internet, they're letting their emotions just take them away. It's like instead of Calgon take them away, it's toxic emotions take them away. So you're basically saying set the tone, set your mind.
Set the tone. Like for instance, if I like to study different subjects every single month. So let's say the subject could be peace, or another month rest. Another month could be gratitude. So right now I'm really into this idea of slowing down to the speed of life and being in the moment, fully present, fully feeling, fully alive. And that's the kind of life that you live as well. So for me, I don't get up and instantly look at social media, because then I'm going to get like maybe about 20 images of what other people are doing with their lives. It's too much too quick.
It is.
I want a mindset. Again, I want to lock, set, solidify on a channel of, let's say, gratitude. And I tell you, I can stay in that space. I stay in it.
Well, I think it's so important for people to really get this. And it's not just, what do I want my mind to be today? But there is a ritual that you go through, and you got to figure out what your ritual is. But I do think that mindset is so key, because life will take you away, particularly right now. And there's not a lot of comfort zones. We lived at least here in the US, there was a lot of comfort. We got to kind of rest on our laurels.
Yes.
We got to feel safe knowing that, my job is going to be there 3 months, or at least feel like it's going to be there 3 months from now. Now you've got jobs, you've got health, you've got civil unrest. There's a lot of things being thrown at one issue, and it becomes a grandiose issue. It's hard to figure out what the issues really are, right?
Oh yeah.
And so I think that is key. And I love what you said about this month, because this is something I talk a lot about too. In order to speed up, you got to learn how to slow down.
Ooh, see, I like that.
And the reason why I came up with that one is because I'm a little speed demon. If you get me going, it's hard to get me to slow down. And I realized that more is not necessarily better.
Mm-hmm. So I like that. So you are really there yourself, but even though you know to do it, you then have to do it.
Yes.
And
yes.
so let me throw in two words that you use the idea, but without using the words, is that really we're living in a time of adjustment, and we have to learn also to adapt. Like for instance, I love to go to the ocean, but if you go to certain parts of our beaches in Southern California, for a while you couldn't go down trails that we used to be able to go walk down. Because of COVID-19, they had like cut the trails off. And so I saw people up in arms, people were bothered. And so what happens? They lose that peaceful mindset because, oh my goodness, I need to adjust or adapt or wearing masks, etc. So we just have to realize that as people, this is not business as usual. Let's adjust and let's adapt.
Well, I love the adjust and adapt, but we're getting a lot of reactionary stuff right now. We're not getting the, oh, yes, let me adjust and adapt. It's like, they're not going to tell me what to do, or I'm, which is the total polar opposite, but I'm not going to do anything and I'm going to stay in my house forever and ever and ever, and I'm never going to go out, right? So you got these two polar opposites that don't allow a lot of freedom in anybody's life, right?
Okay, you're going to love this one because you travel as well. So I was on vacation in the Bahamas, and I was at a great restaurant. And I was with a really great person who's in the industry that we're in. It's a great restaurant, and they took forever with the service, even like from the beginning to take your order. Then once they took your order to bring what you were drinking, everything took forever. And the lady said to me, she said, "You're used to things quicker, aren't you?" And I said, yes. And she said, just go ahead and just adjust yourself. You are in the Bahamas. They're going to go at this pace, and just know this is the way it's going to be. And so this is what we need to do during COVID-19. Really, culturally, things have shifted.
And there's, I think there's a lot of benefit from that if we can look for the benefit. And the benefit is, I know for myself, I have a slowing down that has happened. I'm not as mobile as I was, right? And actually in some of the stuff I go, wow, I don't need to be that mobile. And that's not such a bad thing, because it allows you to get your priorities straight. It allows you to think about things more dynamically, even deeper. I think we've lost that sense of just pondering. Right?
100%. I think that and you've heard it before, that we become human doings instead of human beings. And even when we get with friends, a lot of things are, what are you doing? What projects are you working on? It's not so much like, how are you doing? It's what are you working on? So you're exactly right. I think we have time to really digest what's going on in our lives in all areas. And I've come to start to enjoy this, and I am going to adjust and make this part of the way I live from this time forward.
Well, and that flexibility, we can stay in our upsetness, but this is bigger than any one of us. So we can either be happy in the adjustment, or we can rant and rave about it, and it may not be it may not get you anywhere. That's the other thing, right?
Yes.
So you and I, we've been on this journey with Marliyn. And it's, we're talking a lot about COVID, but I do think that it's important because mental illness and addiction is up, depression is up, anxiety is up, burnout is up, especially, people are not as busy in some industries, but the burnout's still there, right? what do you say to somebody that may be suffering? Let's deal with the addiction aspect of it first, right? What
Yeah.
do you say to somebody, because their go-to for stress is let me
Yes.
either pop a pill or let me overeat or let me drink. What do you say to that?
So number one, I feel for you, and as you know, I'm very much in the addiction space, and I've been working with people that struggle with addiction for 30 years, and I actually am part owner of an amazing facility in Tucson called ARC. It's a 120 bed facility helping people with addiction. So if addiction is something that you struggle with, let's say with alcohol or drugs, what's going to happen is when you feel overwhelmed, you're going to be tempted to medicate yourself. And the medication for most people is to make them feel even. Most people are not just trying to escape altogether, because I deal with people every day in this. The people that I dialogue with over 30 years is they're mainly saying, Tim, I just want to just feel even. So I'm drinking to feel even, or I'm medicating myself through drugs to feel even. So what needs to happen is that we have to find healthy choices. If you're an addict, we might have to get you addicted to something else. And this is what I do with a lot of people. I don't try to take away addiction from them completely. I just try to get you to be more focused on something else. And that something else can be humanitarian work. It could be a project like writing a book. It could be exercise. It could be cooking classes. So a lot of the people that I life coach that are struggling with addiction, it's like a little kid that's carrying scissors. I don't try to rip the scissors out of their hands. I offer them something else and they want to then exchange it.
Ooh, that's really, really good. And the other thing that you're saying that I think is really important is I just want to feel even. I don't want to necessarily have it go away. The challenge, though, and this is something that Marliyn had, and I know because you deal with a lot of top celebrities as well, and
Yes.
probably you would have been dealing with Marliyn back in the day and switching it out, in a more positive instead of just, medication after medication after medication. But
Mm-hmm.
Marliyn was extremely bright. And a lot of creatives are really bright. And so what their brain is doing is it's
Yes.
functioning really fast. And I can talk to this because my ex is very much in that realm of Marliyn, that kind of bipolar kind of feel in his mental mind. And his thing was, I just want to calm it down. Want to calm it down. And I don't know if it's talked about a lot in the media, but I think we have to have this correlation, especially for people that have a creative mind. They're brilliant.
Yes.
They got to find a better way of working those pictures. And I love the formula because nobody wants something taken away from them. Right?
Yeah, because then you have a void. It's like, let's say if you have a nicely furnished living room and we start to take furniture out, which is their other addictions, and now you leave them with a void room. I can't do that. So as a life coach, then I begin to say, hey, let's look at some other options. Did you ever play tennis? And some people say, I did, as a teenager and even in college, I played tennis. Maybe that's something we should look at doing again. Or have you ever decided to maybe take a Spanish class or a French class? And I promise you, it works almost every time because they had a void and now we've put furniture in the place where there was a void.
That's really good. And so, when you start talking about you have a setback to a comeback, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is I think sometimes people, what they do is they keep beating themselves up. Right. And they can't get out of the setback. So part of it is do something new. How do you deal with somebody that maybe doesn't even have the desire to do anything new? It's more of a depressed state than it is even, hey, I just have to calm down my mind. Right.
So we are all used to being triggered by different things. Let's say when you're younger, if you're dating somebody, a lot of times there were certain songs that would come on the radio that were part of your relationship. So if you broke up with them, if that same song came on, it triggered you, right?
Yes. Yes.
So songs can do that, restaurants, even a smell.
You know, it's so interesting you're talking about that. Right when you said that, I thought about my childhood boyfriend, my little soulmate from my childhood, right? And it was Reasons, Earth, Wind and Fire. Every time I hear that song, boom, goes right there, you know?
And what a song. Yeah. So we are all being triggered all the time. Triggered by somebody's facial expression if they seem like they don't like us. Triggered by if the phone rings and we think it's somebody, of what we might have to talk about. So we have these triggers. So you have to know that life will constantly trigger you. So you see that? You will be triggered. Now, the second thing is, what is my response going to be? What is my response going to be? So what I do with clients is I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for better. If you just work on getting better every week, you're going to have a better life. I promise you. And I'm not even like the hour-to-hour guy or even the day-to-day guy. I'm the week-to-week guy. I'm like, you know what? If you ate well 4 out of 7 days, that was better than before.
Yes.
Let's get a little bit better. And I tell you, for everybody watching right now, if you just practice that next week, just getting better in the areas where you have not been doing so well, when you get triggered, it'll make you do a lot better.
I love what you're saying. And the reason why also, and it's interesting that we didn't talk about what we were really going to talk about. We just jumped in today, right? And my theme this week is be better. Talking to everybody about be better, right? And so here you are, like, be better, just be better. And I think because we also have a lot of self-talk and it's negative. We start beating ourselves up. To your point, you have a trigger, you beat yourself up. Oh, what did they do? Why didn't they like me, etc. And then you go to another trigger and then you turn on the news. And so all of a sudden, by the time that the end of the day, you're just one big trigger and you haven't even given yourself a lot of benefit or credit, I should say, about what you've done right that day.
Can I give you one really great idea?
Oh, I love it.
Okay, so you remember the old satellite dish? We still see them around some places, but it was like a thing that you needed at times, is a big dish, and that dish would shift and you could pick up different networks and channels based on where it was shifted, right?
Yeah.
So I've been teaching for years that sometimes we need to shift our satellite dish. Now, during COVID, a lot of people have been giving me ideas of shows to watch. And, you know, I see on social media where people were teasing, saying, I'm done with Netflix. Now what? Like, you know, I finished. So by just poking around, I went to the History Channel and I found this documentary on the life of George Washington. Now, I didn't used to know that much about George Washington. I knew probably 4 things.
Yeah. Like most of us do, right?
Okay. But in watching this 3-part, very long documentary, I was so into this that it so shifted my satellite dish. It took me into a different era, place. It was beautiful. It was a nice change.
Well, you know, it's really interesting because with the podcast that we're doing around Maryland right now, too, it takes you back to old Hollywood. So you feel like you're there in that era. And I think that for a lot of us, if we just take the time to, you know, it's interesting, you're exploring. Some people are like, okay, I'll go to Netflix. We got to expand outside your box, which is what you're talking about. It's like adjust, explore, be able to move in the environment that you are given. There's a lot of freedom in that, and that freedom comes from here.
I like that. And can we just almost end with this idea of exploration?
Yes.
because you're an explorer and so am I. And so some of you that are watching right now, you need to really let that explorer come out of you again. That creative person where your mind just goes. You know, little kids love to play in the world of fantasy. I was over a friend's house not so long ago, probably 6 months ago, and her daughter was dressed as a princess. And I said, how often does she dress like this? She says, every day. Well, she's 3.
And I love it. So you know what? For all of us that are, or for all of you that are watching, go dress up like a princess. My little godson, I love it. He goes, Nani, I am going to protect you. He's 4 years old too.
See?
And he thinks he's Spider-Man, right? So why not, right? Explore, be an adventurer. So Tim Storey, your words of wisdom, I so thoroughly enjoy talking to you. And for Mental Health Mondays, for our Marliyn project, for it growing mental health addiction.
Yes.
This is a place of healing. And what is our wonderful tagline? Is taking tragedy and we're turning it into a transformation, aren't we? So
we are. So let's continue this. Let's continue to do this and let people's lives be changed. And if I could just end with this, you may not be what you want to be, but thank God you're not what you used to be. So don't beat yourself up, everybody that's watching. Don't put yourself down. We've come a long way, baby.